Hey. I said, excuse me, but you don't understand where I'm at. I was all around the world, on span, cross the map. I've been laying low and now it's time to pop up, bitch, I'm back. Now I'ma run it up. Snooze on the kid, are you dumb or what? You better go get your numbers up.
It's red when he does it.
Well, good evening.
Yeah, bitch, I'm a cow. Bitch, I'm a cow.
There you go, Cyber. I just needed a little taste of the bitch of a cow video, bro.
Okay. Anyways, welcome to the MCU's Bleeding Edge, YouTube land and everyone out there. Welcome to tonight's show. Tonight we are going to be reviewing another Infinity Saga film as we make our way through this amazing Infinity Saga for you guys. Just like we've said last week, we're going to be doing the She-Hulk episodes on Friday nights now because of the show coming out on Thursday. So tune in to Friday shows as well to watch our great, amazing She-Hulk reviews. But on Wednesdays, we will still be entertaining you with some content as well. So keep around for those shows too as well. And we'll probably continue with the Infinity Saga and keep going from there. So keep your eyes out. But anyways, tonight we're going to be reviewing, like I said, Thor Ragnarok from 2017 and is the third Thor film. And of course, a lot of people were happy with this film compared to the last one, Dark World. A lot of people hate Dark World. But this Thor Ragnarok definitely revitalized this franchise and was a really amazing film. So we have an amazing panel with us tonight. Of course, I have my faithful co-host, Mr. TrueKnowledge, here in the house. Say hello, Jeff.
Hello, everybody. It feels good to be on the MCU's Bleeding Edge and be a co-host, baby. I love it.
Thank you, Jeff. Then we have returning, of course, from the Podcast of Champions, Loki's mom, a.k.a. Renee. How we doing, Loki's mom?
I'm doing really, really well. And Lady Death Lady, she has on Chanel Spring Collection 1956.
Ooh, Chanel 1956. Oh, she looks very lovely tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And also returning from the Podcast of Champions is our main man, Mr. Arch. Welcome, Arch.
Yo, guys, it's always good to talk to you. Just so you know, off air, off camera, I will be getting intermittently ready for bed. So just, keep a heads up for that.
Okay.
Sexy.
Good to know. All right. So, like I said, we're going to be reviewing Thor Ragnarok tonight, which is directed by Taika Waititi. This is the first film that Taika came in and directed for Marvel. And a lot of people think that he really revitalized the franchise with this film. And I think that is very true. So we're going to go around the panel and just ask that same question. Do you think that Taika Waititi did revitalize this franchise with this film? Starting with you, Loki's mom.
Well, I don't really know. I don't really know where MCU was at the time, right before this movie came out. I think, what was the one before? Was it Age of Ultron? Was that the last one before that one?
No.
D mega doo-doo. I'm sorry.
Later in phase 3.
I'm sorry, what?
This came out right before Black Panther, so it was much later on. It was near the end of phase 3, actually. So it'd been quite a while since the previous Thor film. It's one of the, I haven't looked it up exactly, but it's one of the longer gaps between sequels.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
wasn't sure.
Dark World was 2013, November of 2013.
Right. Well, anyway, as far as answering the question, revitalizing, I would say we did Guardians of the Galaxy 2 last week, and I thought that was one of the best ones that came out in the whole series. So as far as maybe it sparked the fans again because like to see it'd been a gap, but yeah, it certainly didn't hurt. Let's put it that way. It was a really good, I guess, one of the bigger hits, and certainly stands beside the original Thor movie. So yeah, I would say I'll go with yes. It revitalized it.
All right, thank you, Arch. You, sir, your thoughts on, did you feel that Taika Waititi revitalized the Thor franchise with this film?
I've got two takes on this. One's personal and one's just the fan base in general. And the answer in terms of the fan base in general is yes. I mean, there's clearly a large amount of excitement around this film. It's hyped up among many of the fans, and for good reason, that I have no disagreement with. It was fun. It did a lot of different things in terms of the story, in terms of hitting a really cool balance between whimsical sci-fi and great action, and also character driven moments as well, for a lot of different characters, from Loki to Thor, to Valkyrie, and a lot of people. So I thought it was really cool, and it did a lot for the franchise. It established Thor as a serious main player, and I think before that his movies were definitely seen, kind of globally as not on the level of the Cap and Iron Man films at the time, and maybe even probably Guardians of the Galaxy. So, but personally, I really enjoy the first two. I think the first one is a great father-son film, with a really cool personal story about what Loki's misgivings are, what his faults are, what Thor himself is sort of overcoming and dealing with, about what it takes to be a king. I saw a great video recently on whether Loki would make a better king or not, and it didn't than Thor, and it wound up weaving back to yes, that he would, because he was really driven to. Anyway, I think the first Thor films were great. I'm a really big proponent, actually, of the Dark World. I feel that one kind of gets a little bit of a shaft, and I'm not going to call it one of the very top end films, but I think there's a lot of good sci-fi stuff going on there. I think it does a lot with the story. There's a great section through the center of that, from the siege of Asgard to the escape from that, to the death of Frigga and the funeral that follows there. A lot of stuff that goes on with Loki in that film that's really, really cool, and I think that one gets underplayed a lot, and I kind of like that dark sci-fi fantasy sort of element. So I think those are really cool. But yeah, ultimately this film, Ragnarok, was a really high point, and a really popular point for the franchise. So I'd ultimately have to say yes.
Awesome, thank you. I liked how you had both perspectives there, your personal and the fan base. I really enjoyed that. Jeff, your thoughts are on that. Do you feel that Taika Waititi revitalized the series with this film?
Yes, I do. I mean, without question, he did. I mean, he pulled off something that, I mean, the MCU itself is already unique. It was already a unique concept, right, from jump. It was a totally different kind of deal than we'd ever had before. To have that type of interconnectedness across the span of whatever it was, 27 films or 20, whatever it was unheard of. Like, no one had ever done anything like that before, right? Like, it wasn't even like something that anybody even thought was possible. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, a lot of us didn't even believe the first Avengers film was possible until it happened. I didn't think it was possible for Tiffy to be able to snore so loud that I'm going to fucking die over here, but like, it's happening. I'm feeling it. But thanks, Tiffy. Appreciate you. But anyways, Tiffy's my buddy. But either way, I mean, I have to say that you got to give Sarah Haley Finn as she goes by now. I'm assuming she got married or something. You got to give her some credit too, because like Arch said, and we're gonna get into this throughout the like review. I'm sure all of us will, but the blend of characters that she put together in this film, and not just her, but Kevin Feige and the entire team that came up with the story and the concept of the film. That decision making, like to put Valkyrie in there with Bruce Banner Hulk in his last film as the Hulk before he gets his ass beat by Thanos and then goes into whatever mode, and then Professor Hulk. And then Cate Blanchett as the villain, right? I think that if anything, she might have been too good for the role. Maybe that's not the right way to put it. If anything, I think that in a different film, she might have been even more effective than she was in Ragnarok. But she was still really great. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, at times she was just like so imposing that nobody could even touch her. But still, she was great. And once again, it really lends to that whole deal where Ragnarok came out when, Cyber?
2017.
2017. So 9 years after Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk. Cate Blanchett, who I believe has won an Oscar before, or at least been nominated multiple times, decided to join the cast of Thor Ragnarok, right? Coming off of the Dark World of all freaking movies. You know what I'm saying? So might have been a little risky, But again, Anthony Hopkins had a small role in the film, but he was great, very influential. Doctor Strange, throwing him in the mix in the beginning of the film, gave it this whole different angle. It really did. And it kind of set us up for Infinity War in a way, if you think about it. Just like kind of Civil War did too. So I feel like as far as Taika goes, I think it was great timing for Taika to come in because he made his movie, right? His soundtrack, the music he liked and he wanted in the film, and it worked. It all worked together. It all fit. The sci-fi angle, Jeff Goldblum being in it, of all freaking people, and being hilarious as shit too. What an ensemble cast! Literally, probably one of the best ensemble casts in the entire MCU. As far as Taika goes, yes, without question, Cyber. What he did to take Thor from Thor 1 and 2 to Ragnarok was like Mad Max, making over $100 million in the box office worldwide off of a $400,000 budget.
Okay, well, just for those cinephiles out there, the budget for this film was $180 million. It ended up making $854 million at the box office. So yeah, that technically would be similar to Mad Max back in 1979 making $100 million. Yes, most definitely.
I can't believe Ragnarok did not crack $1 billion and Captain Marvel did.
People just prefer the more seriousness of probably Captain Marvel than Ragnarok. I guess. Who knows? But anyways. Thank you for that. Very well done. Very well done. So basically, we're going to run the trailers to just kind of re-jog everyone's memories about this awesome film before we get even more into the meat of this film. So, Mr. Jeff, if you have those ready, let's watch them, sir.
Now I know what you're thinking. How did this happen? Well, it's a long story.
It's main event now. I give you your incredible...
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Oh, Come on. So much has happened since I last saw you. I lost my hammer, like yesterday, so that's still pretty fresh. And then I went on a journey of self-discovery, where I met you. Where are we? You have no idea. Hela, the goddess of death, has invaded Asgard.
Oh, I've missed this.
And you and I had a fight recently.
Did I win?
No, I won, easily.
Doesn't sound right.
Well, it's true.
Asgard is dead. And it'll be reborn in my image. I thought you'd be glad to see me.
I need to stop her here and now. To prevent Ragnarok, the end of everything. So I'm putting together a team. Like the old days.
Surprise! This will be such fun.
Hello.
Hi.
He's a fighter.
Here we go! I'm not a queen or a monster. I'm the goddess of death. What were you the god of again?
We're the same, you and I. Just a couple of hot-headed fools.
Yeah, same. Hulk like fire, Thor like water.
Well, kind of both like fire.
But Hulk like raging fire, Thor like smoldering fire.
Nice. Such great trailers. Such great trailers. Love those trailers. The music, the soundtrack for this film is absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely love the soundtrack for this film. It was one of the best soundtracks, I feel, of that phase. And I thought they just did a really good job with the music for that film. Such a great one. All right. So with that refresher, let's move on with where we're at. So the movie starts off with Thor basically in a cage, and he's basically explaining why he's in the cage. And we have this nice little kind of prelude, and he's talking and stuff like that. And all of a sudden he falls out of the cage, and he's in these chains, and he starts twirling around, and there ends up popping up Suitor, who has had him basically locked up. And they start to have a conversation, and they have kind of some funny anecdotes going on while he's spinning around on the chain as he's talking to Suitor. Suitor basically eventually tells him that, you know, Odin is no longer on Asgard, and Thor finds that kind of weird. Why isn't Odin on Asgard? And as they're having this conversation, basically you can see that Thor is kind of plotting how he's going to escape and, you know, what's going to go on. So at one point, all of a sudden, he kind of opens his hand while he's in the chains, waiting for Mjolnir to pop up. Mjolnir, however you say it, Jesus Christ.
Mjolnir.
Yeah,
Mjolnir.
Yeah, such a hard word to say. I don't know why. But anyways, he puts out his hand, and all of a sudden he's like, wait, and all of a sudden Mjolnir pops up, and he starts to battle all the creatures there that are in Suitor's, dungeon there, or whatever you want to call it. And so they have an all-out epic fight. He's fighting off, Suitor's people and stuff like that, and Suitor fights him a little bit, even though you can see he's definitely, not at his full strength. And basically, as he's fighting the creatures and stuff like that, all of a sudden, at one point, he knocks out Suitor and basically makes him retreat inside to his head, or helmet, as you want to call it. And basically, he straps him to his back. and then basically starts jetting off, trying to get out of there. And he's still fighting the creatures. And all of a sudden, there's a dragon that pops out. That is Suitor's dragon chasing him. And at this point, as he's still fighting all the other creatures and stuff like that, the dragon's trying to fall and try to eat him. And they have this epic battle. And basically, it ends up with, Thor calling to Heimdall to open the gate so that he can get back to Asgard. And as he does that and he comes through, it kills the dragon, cutting off his head. And the head comes flying into the portal there. And it's a very funny moment where all of a sudden the dragon's head, it's just the head. It kind of slowly rolls in. And then all of a sudden the tongue kind of pops out and then the eye rolls forward. And we have that kind of fun, awesome little beginning battle scene. And then that's when the credits pop on. It's like, ooh, Thor Ragnarok. And we have that cool kind of like insignia and stuff like that. Was really cool how it looked and all that kind of good stuff. And so after that, that's Thor, pops up and he's like, who are you? And Carl Urban's character is there. And basically he explains who he is and how Heimdall is now considered a traitor against the throne, and basically he's hightailed it out of there, and that he's now basically taken over Heimdall's position. He was trying to basically kind of like woo these two girls he has there, and he's showing him the different like things he has there, and he goes, "Here's my stuff," which is absolutely freaking hilarious. This whole scene, like he's got the weight things, and he's doing the weight things, and he's showing his guns and stuff like that. Really funny. Before that, and then Thor's like, I gotta go. And he's like, but I gotta announce that you're coming. And then Thor flies off, and then all of a sudden, I forget what Carl Urban's character's name is. Anybody remember?
Scourge, I think.
Scourge, thank you.
Scourge
starts running towards to announce that he's coming. And basically that's when we get over to the main area of Asgard, and there's a play going on. So before we get into the play, that whole beginning sequence there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And my thoughts are, what is everyone's thoughts on how they portrayed Suitor? Were you impressed with how they portrayed him? Did you think he didn't have a big enough scene there at the beginning? Do you think he was like, why did they have him kind of like this weak? What were your thoughts on the presentation of Suitor, starting with you, Loki Spawn?
Oh yeah, I thought it was real well done. I mean, he's like a major bad guy villain in the Norse mythology and everything, and he's in the myth he actually is a major player in the Ragnarok prophecy. Yeah, they're just real well done. I mean, he's what they called a fire giant, like the frost giants there, but they control fire with the frost giants control the ice, whatever. But yeah, plenty of scenes there. I'm not sure who the actor was behind the character, the animated character, but yeah, I liked it. I liked how he looked. I mean, very evil. I mean, he looks like, we'd imagine Satan would look like, with the horns and everything going on. And then his grandiose is emoting, how grandiose, a lot. And of course, Thor's just hanging there, and he's already got it figured out, like Cyber says. He's just gonna, but wait till he finds this place, and then he's gonna let this guy have it. And he's not impressed with him at all. And yeah, so yeah, and like you said, it sets him up because he comes back at at the end of the film. Of course, he's at the very end, so yeah, he's well set up for that. And of course, Thor gets the antlers and takes them to. Puts them in the vault, Odin's vault, for later use, as it were.
Thank you. Yeah, the guy that voiced Suitor actually is Clancy Brown. He does Mr. Krabs' voice on SpongeBob, but okay. he's a prolific actor that has had a lot of bit parts in films over the years. He was actually in the Sleepy Hollow TV series that Fox did. He was the sheriff. But yeah, if you saw him, you would recognize him. But he's pretty prevalent. But that's who did the voice of Suitor. Taika actually did the motion capture for Suitor's body for the CGI animation.
Okay,
that was kind of interesting.
Okay, yeah. Well, I would have never guessed Mr. Krabby Patty, whatever his name is, and Suter was the same voice actor.
Yep, Clancy Brown. Yep. All right. Thank you. Arch, same question, sir.
Yeah, no, I really loved him for a few reasons. Clancy, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned him because I was going to, but he was also in the Shawshank Redemption. He was the head security guard there, and he was in television shows, which unfortunately was canceled early, so I can't recommend it, but it was amazing for 2 seasons. Carnival, he was the main sort of villain, so good stuff there. So what I thought was cool about this, and I don't watch a lot of trailers, as you guys know. I'd seen the first trailer we just watched there for sure. I never did watch the second one, so I actually did not know Surtur was going to pop up, which I think is great. I think it's the best way to watch these. There's a lot of stuff that's just surprising to you when you watch them, and I find that to be really refreshing. I think trailers show way too much, but it was great. So when I first saw this, I was like, "Holy shit, it's Surtur!" I think I thought it was cool as hell. I thought he looked great, and I try not to think my way through these too much. I suppose as you're watching one of these, you could go, "Oh, clearly they're establishing that he's taking Surtur's crown," as he calls it, but his skull or whatever you want to, whatever it actually is, and he, when he takes it back to Asgard, you can kind of figure this is going to come into play later, but you really have no idea how, and the way that it does come back into play is quite surprising. So I thought they played that really well. I thought he looked amazing. I thought Clancy did a great job acting it. I thought the realm of hell, I believe it is, that he presides over. Hell with one L, I think, is the realm he's actually in. That it may be something slightly different. If
I think it's Muspelheim.
Is it Muspelheim? That is different, isn't it?
Yeah, hell is in hell.
Yeah, it is different. Yeah, you're correct. Okay, I thought I might have been getting that wrong. That's why I couched that. Thank you very much there. I thought it looked great. I thought all the demons were amazing. I thought the way the fight sequence played out was really cool. They found a lot of creative ways to use the hammer. I like how it didn't come right to him, and there was a little bit of a delay there. I thought that was really cool. The scene where he's escaping the dragon, and it probably has some specific name, and then they cut to credits then as he's kind of just getting away from it. I thought that was great. I always love it when Thor uses his hammer as a weight and something can't get up from it. I always think that's amazing. He's done that with Loki. He did it with Hulk. He did it with the dragon here. I thought that was really cool. Just a fantastic opening scene. There's a small little bit of a Scourge, so Carl Urban's character. I like this idea. They don't come out and specifically say it, but that he knows Loki. He already knows that Loki's behind this, and the idea that he just kind of goes along with whoever's in charge, from Loki to Hela, and then finally rebelling against that's a major part of his character arc, even though it might be a little bit understated, which is kind of a good thing because it kind of gives you a chance to read into it. But I love that entire opening sequence.
Thank you. It's a very good opening sequence. Really well done, I thought. Great animation, great music, and just all around great fight sequences, and just a great way. I mean, the dragon, the demon creatures, and all that stuff was just so much fun. Really well done. Sir Jeff, your thoughts, sir, on the same question?
Well, if they would have had Tiffy over there snoring in front of Surtur or whatever, that would have scared him. That would have screwed him up right there. I'm telling you right now, he would have not known what to do. But no, it was great. I mean, it didn't set the tone exactly for like the whole film at all or anything like that. Like it didn't give off any kind of vibe where you were like, oh shit, this is gonna be some crazy Taika, change the game type shit going down here. Like it just was a really interesting sort of like immediate change in Chris Hemsworth portrayal of Thor, in that right from jump, just like kind of us with the Bleeding Edge, like, he started injecting humor into his dialogue and whatnot for the first time, really. I mean, when he tried to be funny at all in Thor or Thor Dark World, it was always in situations where he did stupid shit, like throwing his glass on the floor and being like another or whatever, or like looking stupid or not understanding something, you know what I mean? Like, like on Earth or whatever. He was never actually like cracking jokes or like in his dialogue, like having back and forth with Loki or like, other characters and like being funny, you know? So to have it like start off in a situation where he's like, was he in a cage?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in a cage.
Yeah, he was in a cage.
Yeah, he was in a cage. Yeah.
And he's like, and he's spinning, you know, and the whole time he's like talking to Surtur like he's talking down to him. You know what I mean? Like Surtur's this like, what is he like? He's not a god, but he's like almost like a. I'm trying to think of what the right word would be. He's like a mythical being from the history of like Asgard or whatever, you know, almost akin to like that What If monster that looked like that looked like that one comic book villain or whatever, you know, that we saw with the tentacles and everything and whatnot that was from the Asgardian legends. Either way, I just thought it was really cool. Like, it was really funny because it was kind of hard to take Surtur seriously at that point. You know what I'm saying? For one thing, he wasn't huge. And then for another thing, like, he had everything he had to say was so serious and like morbid and everything and whatnot. And Thor was just like talking shit to him, making fun of him, you know, like it just really set an interesting tone. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that was really great. It was a great action scene. It was the first time that we'd seen, I mean, I'm not sure about the whole MCU, but it was the first time that we'd seen, you tell me, Cyber, what Led Zeppelin doesn't usually like let people use their music in movies and stuff like that and whatnot, typically.
Not that I'm aware of. Their music has been used in several films over the years, so I don't see why they wouldn't.
Well, my point was just that it was such a different tone that the first Thor films to like have them actually use a Led Zeppelin song right off the bat like that. So different than anything we'd seen in Dark World or like, you know, in the first Thor. Totally different.
The Immigrant song couldn't have been more perfect there. I mean, it really.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you think about it, that really did set a tone on its own. Just a song, you know.
It's rocking. It's talking about Valhalla. It's pitch perfect. It's great.
Yeah.
It connects. It really connects well to the energy of the scene, to the energy of the film, and it lends something that connects to Thor. You know, like this version of Thor, it really lends to him and Chris Hemsworth in a way where you identify him with those Led Zeppelin songs in the film.
Yeah, well, Led Zeppelin, they're from that heavy metal era. When you had a lot of that, like you say, like Arch, they play into that, the Norse, very dark, the goth element of it. You know, Molly Hatchet, you think of those. Oh God, what's some of the Megadeth? I mean, you can just go on and look at some of their album covers, and you can see where they're. And you can see that Taiki pulled from those album covers with a lot of his he working with his art directors and everything. They really come up with that look of that type of heavy metal era.
If they would have had Bandmate on the soundtrack, that would have killed it.
Well, they could be Valkyrie.
Oh my God.
That would have made the album horrible.
You don't think Bandmate manners or Bandmate domination would fit into a Marvel film?
Not this Marvel film.
No.
Maybe another one down the road, but not this one. This one had a very eccentric taste to its music. So very, very, very rock pop feel. You know what I mean?
Sure. And then you mix in too when we go to Sakaar, the Grandmaster, and everything and whatnot. A lot of like weird kind of dancey electronic, sort of like weird sci-fi type music too at times. So like an interesting mix.
Yep. All right. Thank you. All right. So we left off. We were Thor was just walking up the steps to the main area of Asgard. There he sees this play going on, and there's Odin sitting on his like throne eating grapes, and he definitely sees that something's amiss, that something doesn't seem right with this play. And basically the play that we see, which it features great actors such as Sam Neill, Matt Damon, Luke Hemsworth, are supposed to be playing Loki, Thor, and Odin. in the play, and basically it's showing basically another rendition of Loki's death in Dark World. And so they have the play going on. They're watching the play. Thor's just kind of standing there watching the play. The play plays out and does its thing, and then of course they have a standing ovation. And then after the play's over, Thor walks over to Odin's like, "Hey, father," and we see Odin almost like, "Oh shit," saying that, and you're like, "Oh, there's something not right with Odin here." And they start having a conversation when they're saying these things, and what's going on, blah blah blah. He's like, "Oh, I've been just trying to save Asgard from Ragnarok because I've been having these dreams and stuff like that." And they're having the conversation, and basically, you do realize, father, that Mjolnir won't stop until it reaches my hand after I throw her away, and you're gonna make me do it, aren't you? And so he throws it, and he's like standing there, and then he like turns Odin, and he's like, "You gonna do it? You gonna do it?" And basically, finally, he's like, "I yield," and then all of a sudden it shows, boom, it's Loki. Loki is portraying Odin at the moment. You're like, "Oh crap, where's Odin if Loki's here?" And so basically Thor's like, "Where's father? You're gonna show me where father is?" It's like, "Oh, okay." So then they go down to Earth to where Loki supposedly put Odin, which was at like this retirement home basically, and it's being torn down. And he's like, "This is where I left him." He's like, "He was here when I left him." He's like, "Ah, great. Where is he now?" And so they're like having a little bit of a conversation there, and people are walking up to Thor asking for a selfie with him, and he's doing that. And then all of a sudden, Loki, he's standing there. He's like, and all of a sudden, this like portal opens up, and Thor's like, "Are you doing that?" It's like, "No, I'm not doing it." And then Loki falls through the portal and disappears. And then all of a sudden, what was left was this little card that says Bleecker Street. So Thor picks it up. He's like, "Okay, I need to go to Bleecker Street." So he goes to Bleecker Street, and that's when Doctor Strange comes in. And they have this great little like kind of like montage talk in the scene where they're doing all these kind of fun things. And like he's basically he's like talking. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And Thor's like, "I'm looking for my father." He's like, "Why is Loki here too?" Because he was a threat back in Avengers. And so he's like, "We're looking for a father." He's like, "So if we help you find your father, you guys will leave." And it's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay." And basically he's like, "Okay, I'll help you with that." And they go, and he keeps going through the house doing these like funny things to Thor, which is really funny. He gives him, at first he's like, "Do you want tea?" He's like, "I don't drink tea." He's like, "What do you drink then?" And he's like, "I don't drink tea." And all of a sudden a beer pops up, and he's drinking the beer. And all of a sudden they go to another part of the Bleecker Street, and he's like, "I need a strand of your hair." And Doctor Strange plucks a spray of hair from Thor, and he like does like this thing, and then he's like, "Oh, this is where." And I'm like echoing over there, Jeff.
I hear it.
Anyways, so he does that. He's like, Portland's like, "Oh, that's where he is." And he's like, "Okay." And he's like, he puts his hand in. It's like, for the umbrella, which happens to be Mjolnir. And then all of a sudden you hear crashing and booming and stuff like that, breaking stuff. And all of a sudden it reaches him, and it's actually Mjolnir. And he's like, "Oh, how about my brother?" He's like, "Oh," and Doctor Strange does this thing, and all of a sudden Loki drops out of the ceiling. He's like, "I've been falling for 30 minutes," which is an absolutely freaking hilarious line. Absolutely love that line. So funny. And basically then, he's like, Loki's all of a sudden about to go after Doctor Strange, and then he just flows him into where Odin is. And we go, and we're like in this giant field thing. And then all of a sudden, there's Odin, and he's sitting down on a pile of rocks, and they walk over to him, and they say, "Father," and they're talking to him, and he's like, "Hello, sons," and he's like, basically explains, "I kind of finally figured out that I was under a trance from, Loki, and I finally broke free from it, and basically it's my time to die." And they're having a conversation, they're sitting there, and all of a sudden Odin turns into dust. And basically, before he turns into dust, he explains that they have a sister that is super evil and was trying to basically take over the world, and that, when he's gone, she's going to be released from the place that he was keeping her trapped. And so after he dies, they're standing there, and all of a sudden another portal opens, and none who walks through? Hela. So before we move on from there, a lot of information there. Let's talk about Doctor Strange for a second. What were your guys' thoughts on the whole Doctor Strange interaction? Were you surprised to see Doctor Strange pop up in this film? And was there anything about that whole sequence, this whole sequence we just talked about, from the play to Doctor Strange to Odin's death, that you found interesting? Or is there anything maybe you can share with the class that maybe that maybe somebody else doesn't have? Starting with you, Loki's mom.
Okay, class. Yes, I was surprised. Yeah, but when you stop and think about it, he's the Sorcerer Supreme and knows the mystic arts, and Odin, I believe, was also the Sorcerer Supreme of the nine realms, or Asgard, or whatever his section of the universe. And so yeah, that Odin would be aware of Doctor Strange and the whole whatever he's called, that whole gang of magicians and whatnot, and sorcerers. He would probably be well aware, and they'd be well aware of him. So yeah, that he would have went to Strange for help once he got out of the old folks' home. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But yeah, I was surprised to see him, absolutely. But just a word on that, because I do work. I'm a retiree and work part time as a concierge at a senior independent living facility. That sort of plucked at me, because oh my goodness, what if one of my residents is really Odin or somebody like that? You never know.
Awesome, thank you. Arch, same question, sir.
Sure. Just I guess two quick things that stood out from that. I think that's just, regarding how you do regarding Doctor Strange. That's how you do a cameo, and I love the way they do connectivity in the MCU. Just having him, Strange doesn't overwhelm the film. He's there for that scene. He progresses the story, but he does so in a way that also advances his character, because you hadn't seen him since the first film. You're not really aware of where he's at as a sorcerer, and he's clearly very in control. So you get a much better kind of glimpse as to where he's at power wise, sort of as the Sorcerer Supreme. And it also advances the Thor story as well. So I think I thought it was a great use, and I agree with you. The "I've been falling for 30 minutes" is just one of the top lines of the whole series. It's great stuff. Yeah, but he's out. He throws them over to Odin, and it's just a great sequence. The thing that really caught my eye about this whole sequence, though, was actually the play, and maybe not for the reasons everybody thinks, because it's clearly low budget play, and there's some really fun cameos in there, but it talks about Loki, and I'll just reference the Loki series, where towards the end of that series, which of course comes out after this movie, Loki says literally, "I crave attention," and he's doing that as an apology, sort of, for his own behavior. And that's what he's doing here. He's erected he's playing Odin, but he's erected a statue for himself. And what did he always want? He always wanted his dad's attention. So here he is playing his dad and building statues to himself and making himself the center of attention and the hero of the land and his people, sort of rewriting history a little bit, while using actual history to do that. But that's what he always wanted from the start, from when they were kids, from through Thor, the first movie that we saw. He was raised. There's a great scene in the first movie where he's raised to be a king, or his dad tells him, "Both of you, only one of you can be king, but both of you were born to be kings." But he knows full well by this point that he never really had a shot at that. It was always going to be Thor. So he's got this built-in need for attention, and it's a really strong character point for Loki himself.
Thank you. Very much so. Very much so. I completely agree. Yeah, and definitely about the play. I definitely get your point. That was a really good point. All right, Sir Jeff, your thoughts, sir.
Unmute myself. There we go. Well, yeah, I think Arch and Renee already did a great job, basically breaking down like the highlights of the scene. But I think that again, the decision to add Chris Hemsworth's brother and Matt Damon and have them act out that play like that and whatnot, to play off of Loki himself as Odin, and to also just add some spice to the film, add some more star power, you know what I mean? And I mean, honestly, I never considered Matt Damon to be a really funny actor all that much, to tell you the truth. But he's funny as shit in Ragnarok. He really is. Like in that one scene, I mean, he's just great. Good dialogue. I love it. Like, Chris Hemsworth's brother as Thor is like, telling him everything's okay with all the shit he did in New York and everything and whatnot, and like, making excuses for him and everything, almost like, you know what I mean? Like, you're so mischievous or whatever, like he's applauding him, you know what I mean? Like, even as a villain, he's like being praised, you know what I mean? Like, it's funny. It's just funny. Hey, for what it's worth, Chris Hemsworth's brother and Matt Damon have great chemistry together when they work together, I think, comedically. But it really just, it added another interesting mix to the film, and it really just is another, what I think that we're all going to end up pointing out, a lot of things that just are really, really starkly different compared to Thor 1 and 2 in this film. Just totally different direction. Never would have occurred in the Dark World at all. Wouldn't have fit in there at all to throw something like that in there. The first Thor film and Thor Dark World just didn't have the energy or the tone to be able to have things like that work. Effectively. Now I'm freaking echoing, but no, I feel like it's funny. It's kind of funny, as if you think about it. It's sad, but it's funny that like that Loki actually managed to like hex or whatever Odin and put him in a freaking retirement home. You know what I'm saying? Like, of all freaking things, like Odin we're talking about here. Like it just shows you like how capable Loki is when it boils down to it, like what he's capable of. And it's just so Loki that he would become Odin and let the entire 9 realms just go to shit and be like, whatever. I mean, so again, it's just, I feel like, I think Taika deserves credit. I think that, of course, there's always a whole team of people that are involved in all these films and whatnot from like start to finish that are all, in some way a part of the process. But I think that, in general, I feel like Tom Hiddleston, sort of had to adjust a little bit with how he played Loki in this film compared to the other films too, not just Chris Hemsworth. If that makes sense.
All right, thank you. Great thoughts. Thank you.
One thing, the one regret is that Hiddleston and Cumberbatch have really they just have that one brief scene, but they have no lines together or anything like that. And I think maybe down the road, hopefully in the next phase, as the plot goes, maybe they can somehow have some scenes together, because that's something the fans want to see, and it'd be great, and they're great at it. So hopefully that'll happen.
I gotta jump off that real quick, Cyber. She's right. That's a good call. I didn't think about that. The Loki Doctor Strange brief back and forth was great, very entertaining. They're a good fit for each other. Their temperaments and everything and whatnot, both being sort of, I guess, maybe not arrogant, but like, I don't know, egotistical a little bit, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
And
they're shit. Right.
Perfectionist almost. And I think that, but at the same time, though, Renee, and at Cyber and Arch, I think that, like, honestly, Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange. I think that he can connect and like and have chemistry with pretty much anybody in the MCU and have that kind of effect almost.
Yeah, for sure. He's interacted with most people.
I agree. Thank you. All right, so moving on. So where we left off, Hela just had appeared after Odin's death, and basically she kind of introduced herself. I'm Hela. I'm your sister. You sound like Dad. You look like Dad. And basically Thor throws Mjolnir at her, and she stops it in midair and literally breaks Mjolnir. And like Thor's like, what the heck? Like, how did that happen? And so then basically Loki calls the Bifrost, and they start going up into the Bifrost, and Hela follows, and they're kind of little fighting it out inside the Bifrost, and basically she knocks both of them off into the other realms of space to who knows where. She continues up the Bifrost to where she reaches Asgard again. She comes in, and Scourge is there, and she talks to him, like, says, I'm Hela, and both the threesome, the other three guys, the fearsome three or whatever they're called, the Warriors three.
Did
Sorry.
you just call them a threesome, Cyber?
Yes, I called them a threesome. The Warriors three are there, and as she's walking across and talking to Scourge, she kills all three of them. And, basically walks over to Scourge and says, basically explains what's going on. And basically from there, she goes to Asgard and starts taking over Asgard. This is my place. This is my land. This is, I'm the rightful ruler of it now. And one of the other characters were introduced to in the first Thor film, I forget his name too, unfortunately, but he ends up with the army, goes after her, and she has this giant battle with them and basically kills them all, and and basically takes over. Then she takes a walk through the inside of Asgard, where she starts walking by different artifacts and stuff like that, and she starts saying about the different ones. She's like, fake. I thought it'd be a lot bigger and stuff like that. Funny things. That one's not too bad. And she keeps walking, and she finds finally the Eternal Flame, and she's like, ooh, this is what I'm looking for. And basically she takes the Eternal Flame, breaks down into the bottom of Asgard where her former army is, and her former wolfhound creature, Fenris, is there, and basically resurrects them all to basically bring them to help her fight the Crusades against, basically the world, to take over the world. And so after you see all that happening in Asgard with Hela, then all of a sudden it pops back to Thor, and Thor has now landed in some crazy planet he doesn't know where after he got kicked out of the Bifrost, and lands on this planet. And he's about to be basically captured by these, they're almost like Ravagers, I feel. And they're and he's kind of explaining, he forgets that he doesn't have his hammer, and they start to tangle him and stuff like that. And out of nowhere, that's when we get introduced to the amazing, awesome Valkyrie. And she shows up in her thing. She starts walking up the spaceship, and she falls over like she's drunk because she was just drinking. And she falls over, and all of a sudden they're like, and then all of a sudden she's like, wait. And she comes up, and she's like, that's my tag. And they're like, no, it's not. It's our food, basically saying. And she's like, all right, we'll have to do this hard way. And she messes with these things around her wrist, and it's these guns. And all of a sudden she pulls out the guns and just obliterates all the Ravagers away. And then after, Thor's like, thank you. And then she throws this metal thing onto his neck and zaps him like that. He's like, oh. And basically she pulls him and puts him on the craft and starts taking him to the main area of this planet. So in this main planet, which we end up finding is Sakaar, basically she takes him to the Grand Master. So before we move on past that, let's talk a little bit about the whole Hela situation. So what were your guys' thoughts on them bringing in Hela? Were you impressed with what Cate Blanchett did with the character? What were your thoughts of that, basically her taking over Asgard? And do you feel it was fitting to help this movie progress along? Starting with you, Loki's mom.
Oh, yeah, she was Cate Blanchett. She's just a great actress. And, she had the look and everything. She's just real skinny and just menacing. And they had her made up with, pound of mascara on her, and then she had the antlers that would come out of her head and everything. Yeah, it was just a really great character. I thought it was odd they sort of reversed it up, because even in the comics, Hela is Loki's daughter, and she, of course, she's still the goddess of hell in the series. So I thought it was odd that they made her Odin's daughter instead. So I thought that was a change up. And then that brings up the question: who is Loki's mom? Now, we never did find out. We found out that it was his father was actually Laufey, the king of Jotunheim, but his mother is still unknown at this point. So my theory is that since they reversed it, that in fact Loki is the son of Hela.
What?
Yeah, that's my theory.
Wow.
It would just make sense. It would just make
bold.
sense. I mean, he's got to have a mother, unless frost giants can have whatever you call it, have children without sex, clone themselves or whatever.
Oh, you mean
that
Korg?
would make
You
sense.
mean like Korg? You mean like Korg and Thor 4?
Who?
Like Korg.
Korg. Yeah, I don't know. Could be. Who knows? These are aliens. Or they can have children any way they want to. But anyway, going back to that. But if you look at how she looks now, she has the dark hair. Loki has the long dark hair. Very pale, thin. They resemble. She never doesn't even really interact with Loki. You would think that Hela, that would be the first person she would want to ally with. But she just brushes him off.
It would do a little bit to explaining why Loki doesn't just appear as a normal frost giant.
Oh yeah, he's half frost giant and half something else, because when he was in his in the first movie where he briefly lets his true self come. I guess Odin, when he was a baby, had put a spell on him so that he always would look like his human self. So when he starts gaining his powers and realizes he's frost giant, then he lets that part of himself come forward. And he doesn't look like a frost giant. He doesn't have he has some of the features, but he's definitely not, what we would call a full-bred frost giant. He looks more like a Kree. If you've seen a lot of the Kree characters, especially in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, where they have a lot of them, and they're blue skin, the red eyes, they have very similar appearance to what Loki looks like in the original Thor movie. So yeah, anyways, that's my theory. I just think that it's very possible that somehow, some way, she could have had her and Laufey had an affair. They were going to take over the 9 realms, and that's how he had to get rid of Hela, how Odin had to get rid of her. But he kept the kid. He kept his grandson because, it was his flesh and blood. But anyway, that's just my theory.
Okie dokie. Anything else about Hela?
Oh, about Hela?
Yep.
Yeah, she's well, like I say, yeah, she has great powers. I mean, apparently she was just able to just take Mjolnir and just crush it. So she has immense power. So I guess once she got charged up fully from the Asgard battery, however they keep that, it always kills me. They call it a planet, but it's just a big floating island out in space. How in the world how does that happen? Because how does it hold an atmosphere, yada, yada. So apparently they've got some sort of magic or some sort of alien machine work in there that's holding that thing together. Right now that's about all I can say about her. I mean, she's a very interesting character, and of course she reveals that Odin's not what he said he was, and we understand now where Loki was coming from his finding out that his whole life was a lie, and then Thor finds that out that the whole Asgard has been a lie. It was actually built upon a horrible, horrible death and destruction of millions of people. But Odin covered it up, and everybody lived this happy life. And then you have the second scene, the second version of that, when Loki's acting like he's Odin, he's even making it even more candy sweet and and everything's nothing to worry about. Let's just all have fun, which was a lie on top of a lie. So anyway, I didn't mean to go too deep there, but
thank you. Arch, same question, sir.
Yeah, sure. I'll build off of that a little bit, actually. First, before I do, I just wanted to throw out that when I first heard of Hela's description as potentially what she was going to be like, mostly since it was Kate Blanchett, was that it was going to be very much like that scene in Lord of the Rings where Galadriel kind of reveals how she might look as the Dark Queen, and it kind of does play like that a little bit. I love the sort of death metal Kate Blanchett sort of look, so it's cool. But as Loki's mom was referring to, like I think the history of Hela is probably the most interesting part here. Like, so how does this happen? How does he have a daughter that no one knows about? What is this history with the mural on the ceiling that's clearly been copied over? Perhaps Loki's parentage. I'd never actually thought about that, but it makes a lot of sense. I'd have to mull that over a little bit more. But I tend to subscribe, and many of you, probably most of you, have heard of this before. The Odin went after the Infinity Gauntlet theory. I buy into this one a ton. One, we do know that the Space Stone, which is on Earth, was in Odin's possession, and somehow he willingly gave it up. Surely he knows where it is, but he got rid of it for some reason. He erased Hela's history for some reason. There's a lot of ideas that the Rainbow Bridge was created perhaps with the Infinity Gauntlet. One, its coloring system. Two, that the Stormbreaker, which opens up the Rainbow Bridge, or the Bifrost, as we would probably more commonly know it as, is the key to unlocking eternity, of all things. By the way, I did see this the other day, that the emblem, the Norse knots that the Bifrost makes on the ground, do symbolize actually eternity as well. So that is either very coincidental seed planted early, or something they built off very cleverly. So I thought that was a really cool thing. But the idea that itself, he obviously had the copy of the Infinity Gauntlet in his treasure room. So it like the idea that he had a plan to go after these, that he was more of a malevolent king at some point, and taught his daughter to be that way as well, while going after the Gauntlet, and then she became out of control over it. He realized his mistake and tried to cover this all up. Is kind of an interesting backstory potentially for all of this, and I think that's kind of a cool thing to think about. Another backstory that I thought was interesting was Valkyrie, or potentially interesting. I don't know all of her backstory. I did like the little clip that we saw. It was a very beautiful clip of the Valkyrie in mass flying in on their flying horses to attack Hela. I like the allusion to Brunhilde. It may not have actually been her. I don't know if the current Valkyrie is officially Brunhilde or not. It doesn't matter. I just liked the allusion to her love interest, the blonde with the tightly woven. I'm going to call them pigtails. That might not be the right hairstyle, but you know what I'm talking about. To the classic Valkyrie look, I thought that was a really cool inclusion into there. Yeah, a lot of good stuff in there. I think there was something else I was thinking of. You know what? Another thing with Valkyrie, the way they made her look, especially since they went with kind of a amalgamation of Planet Hulk in this film, and with the lines on her face. If you'd ever read the Planet Hulk comics, there was his love interest, Hulk's love interest in that film was Kyra, who the Valkyrie that they present here at least somewhat resembled to me, especially with the lines on her face. So I thought that was interesting. Now, it didn't really turn out that way. She doesn't wind up becoming a love interest for Bruce at all, although throughout the film I thought she might have been or could be. They have a couple little flirty moments, so I thought that was a potential there. It didn't really play out that way, but it was something I was thinking about while watching the film.
Thank you. Great. That was great. Lots of great information there. Thank you. Jeff, your thoughts, sir?
I'm looking at this article from Collider from 2021 talking about how the first Thor was arguably the biggest risk of Marvel's Phase 1, a true fantasy film that also had to be grounded in the tech-based superhero world of the MCU. Director Kenneth Branagh pulled it off by drawing parallels to Shakespeare and giving Thor a human girlfriend, but the character was still a bit stiff by the movie's end. The Avengers writer director Joss Whedon brought out Hemsworth's innate comedic sensibilities to delightful results, but the character still had to ground the drama of the film as a brother of his tragic villain. By the time of Age of Ultron rolled around, Thor was basically Hawkeyed in that sequel, forced to do busy work and spout expository dialogue meant to set up the Infinity Stones for the coming Avengers sequels. So I think that's interesting. It really is. I think it's poignant because it really clearly defines, I think, very well. I never really thought about like that Age of Ultron. They really did shelf Thor. If you think about it, like, I mean, they didn't shelf him necessarily, but I mean, Hawkeye had more of a pivotal, almost like presence, or at times in Ultron than Thor did. And that makes a lot of sense. So if anything, I think that overall the film itself and like Chris Hemsworth's performance as Thor is like a big career trajectory thing for him overall, and was big for the MCU. As far as this particular part of the movie, I think that Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, and again, I don't know Tessa Thompson that well. I never watched any of her stuff on Westworld or anything like that and whatnot, unfortunately, so I didn't see any of that. I heard she was great. Doesn't surprise me that she would be great. I think she's been in some films too. I don't know how old she is. I want to say maybe like late 20s, early 30s. Either way, she's just another great addition. I mean, to the whole team, to the whole dynamic. Adding her to the Thor universe, to have her also in Thor 4 and have a role in that, I thought was a great move. And she fit in perfectly with Bruce Banner Hulk and Thor and Loki. It all worked. And she was an interesting, like, different kind of female MCU character than we'd gotten before. And it had nothing to do with her skin color, everything like that and whatnot. She was just a different type of character. And obviously very powerful too, like when she wants to be, because I mean, that Jawa like dude or whatever and whatnot that tried to step to her, she just like picked him up and threw him up in the air, like tossed him like 8 feet up, 8 miles up in the air and shit. So like that, Valkyrie can throw down when she wants to, I think, when it boils down to it. I mean, she gave Gore a good run for his money in Thor 4. But no, I think that she, like, they did a really good job of setting her up and really projecting her and elevating her right off the bat when she became a part of the film. And she added a really unique element to the movie itself. And those scenes where they show that older, battle with Hela and the are they the Valkyries?
Yep.
Yeah, it's epic. It almost looks like something you'd see in a classic art piece.
Very true. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So moving on. So moving on with that. So there's a scene to basically before we talk about Thor going to see the Grandmaster, next thing we see, there's actually a sequence where it shows Heimdall stealing the sword to the Bifrost so that Hela can't basically move on with her plans, and he starts rallying the other people that don't want to be a part of Hela and saving them and taking them to basically like a forest or a fortress and to hide from Hela. So after that, that's when all of a sudden, we see Thor and he starts traveling in this chair, and he's been being shown like this, almost like this movie or something like that. Tell him you're about to meet the Grandmaster, and it's like all this crazy stuff's going on and talking to him and stuff like that, and it's hilarious. And then all of a sudden it's like basically like it's about to say, "Oh, you're gonna see the Grandmaster." He's like, "Ah!" Like Thor does that, which is really funny. And all of a sudden, he pops up and he's there with the Grandmaster, and they have kind of like this little scene, and we see Loki's there, and Loki says he's already been there a few days, and it's like, "How are you out there? You're not in this." And basically, Thor is told, that he's basically been sold to the Grandmaster, that he's going to be a gladiator. And basically he is, told this, and then he's like, okay, so the only thing we need is for you to get a haircut. Like, nobody touches this hair. And all of a sudden Stan Lee pops up in one of his best cameos, and he's got like this machine. He's like, just work with me here. And he gets a haircut basically. And that's when basically he ends up being thrown into the area where he ends up eventually meeting Korg. And so he meets Korg, and he's inside this thing, and he's like talking to Korg and learning about things that's going on there and stuff like that. And at one point, while he's sitting in there and and he's waiting and stuff like that, Loki pops up and they have a conversation. And basically, Loki's projecting himself to talk to him, and they have this conversation. And it's a really fun conversation, stuff like that, and which is just really fun. And just have fun, and like, you have this really great scene between them and stuff like that. It's like, it'll be even better if you were actually here. And after that, that's when we go to basically a scene where it shows all the people getting ready for the battles and stuff like that. And that's when Thor sees again Valkyrie, and he tries to talk to her and stuff like that to help him out and stuff like that. And she really is like, she's just like, nah, I don't want anything to do with this, blah, 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 and stuff like that. And he realizes that she's a Valkyrie, that, that she's one of those people that helped fight against Hela back in the day before Hela was banished. And he like tries to bring that up and stuff. And she's like, I want nothing to do with that. I'm not about that anymore, blah, 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 that kind of good stuff. And so then after that scene happens, we go back over to Hela, and she's basically starts having this conversation with Scourge. And, basically, what are your future thoughts, Scourge? And like, what is your basis in life and stuff like that? And he starts to go in and say, she's like, no, not like what you like and stuff like that. Like, what do you want to do with your life, basically? And she explains that she had this person that was called an executioner before. And basically, this is the scene where she makes Scourge the executioner. He's like, okay, I'll do what you say, basically to keep himself from being killed. So after that happens, she's like, oh, you're going to go on to one of your first tasks. And basically have like this whole like crazy thing going on, all the people there and stuff like that. And he's about to behead somebody when, he says, oh, I'll tell you where, Heimdall is hiding and stuff like that. So then we go back once again to Sakaar. And that's when basically Thor is getting ready to fight. And he's going to go against the Grandmaster's champion. And the champion ends up being, you're like wondering who is this champion going to be. So as he gets in there, he's being introduced and stuff, and he's in there and he's waiting. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes out the Hulk. Holy crap, the Hulk. And he's like, I know him. He's from work. And which was another great line, just like the whole falling of the 30 minutes thing was so funny. And and Thor starts to like say, Loki, look, it's Bruce. We know him. And Loki kind of sits down to see, remembering when the Hulk smashed him in Avengers, and which was really funny. And then all of a sudden he's like, Bruce, it's me. It's Thor. I don't want to fight you. And he's like, no banner here, just Hulk. And basically they start having a battle. And we have this huge giant battle sequence with Thor and Hulk. And this is the point where in the movie where we find out that there's more to Thor's powers than he realizes. And we get to see that he has more lightning abilities than he previously knew when he thought he just had Majorda to do his bidding, basically. And so basically the fight ends up with, Thor using these new powers and kind of beating the Hulk, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere gets, the Hulk basically ends up winning and knocking him out after he gets zapped by the Grandmaster. And so then basically he goes lights out. He wakes up in the room again, and there's naked Hulk taking a bath. And he's like, what the hell's going on? This stuff. And they have like a conversation and stuff like that. And basically from there, they have this kind of conversation, stuff like that. And he's trying to get, Hulk on his side. I like you better. I don't really like Bruce Banner. All the numbers and stuff like that. And so, and that's absolutely hilarious, that sequence too. It's so funny. And so after they have the conversation, he's trying to get Hulk to get, Valkyrie to come in to help them. And so basically he ends up getting her to come, and they have a conversation and, telling, I'm going to break out of here, and then you're going to get out of here, and I need your help. And she's like, nah, I don't want to help you. Your time is up, basically, blah, blah, blah. And so, the Hulk is like, there too in the background, kind of saying funny things and stuff like that, which is really funny. And basically, as it goes on, then we finally get to the part, basically, when, Thor does escape. He jumps out the window, goes down, and gets back to the twin jet, because the Hulk had told him that that's how he got there, was a twin jet. And so he gets to the twin jet, and he tries to start it. Of course, he does. It has funny kind of like monologue type of thing, where he's like the strongest Avenger, blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, point break, and that's when it turns on for him, because that's what, Tony Stark called it. And while he's in there, all of a sudden the Hulk pops up. It's like, friends stay. And he goes in there, and then all of a sudden the message of Black Widow from Age of Ultron pops up and starts saying, time to, the sun's go now, big boy. And that's when all of a sudden finally the Hulk starts to disappear finally, and allows Bruce to come back. And then Bruce finally pops back up, and he's like, where are they? What about Sokovia and stuff like that? And then basically Bruce ends up finding out, that he actually has been the Hulk for 2 years, because this is supposed to be 2 years after Age of Ultron. It's supposed to be 4 years since Dark World, and it's supposed to be around the same time Civil War Homecoming is happening. And so he finds that out. He puts on some Tony's clothes. They go out into the thing. They're trying to hide and stuff, pretend they're not there. And, and Bruce, of course, has some like moments where he's like, I was just a green guy for some years. Maybe I am getting angry and stuff like that. And they have this conversation, and it's really funny. And, they're trying to get back to where they need to go and stuff like that. And then at one point, we switch back to Hela and her plans and stuff like that, trying to basically, once again, check out the world. And she ends up going and storming the place where Heimdall was basically hiding all the people. And she breaks in and she pulls them all out of there and stuff like that. And to find the Bifrost sword and stuff like that, she ends up getting it. And ends up taking it back, and she starts planning her whole shindig of what she's going to do. Then we go back once again, and Bruce and they're trying to make a how are we going to get out of here? How are we going to get back to Asgard? We got to get back to Asgard. And so we need to find a ship that can get us through and survive going back through the portals that we came through. And so they discovered, well, we need to get the Grandmaster's, thing, because it can survive that. And that's Valkyrie tells them about that and helps them. So that's when basically they all kind of form an alliance. Loki pops up and is helping. They do kind of a funny thing where he's like, he plays help me, I need help type of deal thing when they go in to try to get the thing. They end up eventually getting to the Grandmaster's, amazing ship. And they end up getting in there and they start flying out and stuff like that. And then, of course, Grandmaster's people start flying after them because they want their champion. And basically they have like kind of like a little battle and stuff like that. Valkyrie's fighting them, and Bruce is trying to fly the plane, and Thor's fighting him and stuff like that. And finally they get through and they go up through the Devil's Anus, which I find super funny that they call it the Devil's Anus. So all that just happened. Let's stop there. All right, so on all that thoughts, the introduction of Hulk, the camaraderie between all these characters, all of them coming together with a plan, all that good stuff, all that info there. What were you guys' thoughts on all of that? And just, where did you see, were you happy to see the Hulk? Were you glad? Were you weren't sure were you going to get to see the Hulk in this film? Did you feel the kind of like the World War Hulk was kind of a part of their whole thought process of this and so forth? Starting with you, Loki's mom.
Yeah, seeing Hulk, because we didn't know what happened to him. He got shot off into space at Ultron, and then we ran our Hulk, and finding now how in the world he got to Sarkar, I don't know. In that Quinjet, somehow, some way, he got through a wormhole and wound up there. Yeah, but then he's stuck in the Hulk mode. He can't get out of it, and of course that's probably what protects him there, because he would never. Bruce Banner wouldn't have been able to survive. I don't think very long on Sarkar. Yeah, and then just seeing, as you point out, Cyber, the whole thing where Thor begins to realize that it's not just, it wasn't the hammer, it wasn't, that was where he was getting his power from. He really has the power himself. And it kind of, you have that scene where he's briefly interacting with Odin somehow from I'm dare say I'm assuming Odin's in Valhalla at that point, but he still has the ability to communicate with Thor, and he begins to realize who he is and what his abilities are and what his mission really should be now. And going back to what Art said about this conundrum that Odin had with or has with who's going to be the king. Well, then we realize now with Hela. Odin was keeping her at bay. She was more powerful than he was, or he is. But so long as he kept her off in hell, he could keep that door, that gateway, whatever it was, closed with his power. But as he got older and his powers began to diminish, and he knew neither Thor nor Loki would ever be able to keep her away. So I think that explains a lot the relationship. Why he, in the long run, he couldn't let Thor become the king, and he certainly could never let Loki become the king. But it just wouldn't. The inevitable Ragnarok would have happened either way. There was no way Odin, no matter how hard he tried, could keep Ragnarok from happening, because all of it it was all finally coming together. Everything, all as good as Asgard had been and peaceful and everything for the 9 realms, it was still based upon, like as I said earlier, that horrible truth of how it really got built. So that was all coming home at that point, and it was end times for that society. So anyway, and then seeing the Hulk again, like you say, we see his problems. He's starting to become more cognizant. He's actually, as it progresses after the big battle scene where they're sitting there, and he's still sort of monosyllabic, sort of Tarzan like me talking, but still he's sort of getting a little existential, and he's getting a little deep, and you can see whatever the character itself, the Hulk, is changing, and he'll never go back whatever to that just mindless smash Hulk again. And then it goes on, and then when he sees Scarlett Johansson, Wanda, what's her name?
Black Widow.
The Black Widow. Yeah, what's her name though?
Natasha.
Natasha. When he sees her, that's actually what brings him back to Bruce Banner, and Hulk actually starts getting mad. He becomes upset. And his upset is what triggers him to go back into the Banner mode, which I thought was interesting there. So anyway, the whole thing. And then of course, they escape and they're out there. I don't know if we've got that far, but the people out there having the street parade with all the Hulk effigies and everything, and masks, and throwing green powder and everything. I thought that was just hilarious. And then also we see a little bit of the Mr. Straight-Laced Thor being a little deceptive, just like his brother Loki, because he's trying to lie and oh, you're my favorite one, and then turns right around and says, oh, you're my favorite one, right to Bruce Banner. So he's not quite the Boy Scout that he used to be. He's getting to be a little more like his brother. Anyway.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, Arch, your thoughts on the question, and then your final thoughts, sir, since you are going to be leaving us.
Yeah, I will. Unfortunately, I got work tomorrow. But man, there's a lot of good stuff in here. I'm gonna scattershot this a little bit. I was making some notes so I didn't forget, like as you were talking. But real quickly, Scourge. I think he's got an understated dilemma throughout the whole film. I think he's actually a really cool character, even though he's more of a, you know, an audience sort of perspective character. Like, he knows this is wrong, but it does bring up like a really interesting question, like, you know, as to what the morally correct thing to do here is. He knows this is wrong, but he also knows he's powerless to do anything about it. So his only option here is he could try to stand up to her, but he knows he's just gonna die. So what? I mean, what? You know, what really should he do here? So it's hard to watch him letting people die. Hard to watch him participate in it. But you know, what's he supposed to do? It's kind of a really interesting sort of character perspective, I thought. I will say I do really kind of wish the Hulk was a surprise. You know, it's an awesome moment in the trailer. Amazing trailer. It's one of the top trailers I think they've ever done. It really is, and it was really cool to watch him come out there. But I do often wonder, like, how that film would have played if you really had no idea the Hulk was showing up in that film, and he just came bursting out of there, and you didn't know. I would have thought that would have been cool. There's a small little thing, by the way, if you have never read Planet Hulk, they sort of do a little switcheroo on these roles here. It was, of course, Hulk starring in Planet Hulk, so he would have been in Thor's position. And then the surprise character that came out was none other than the Silver Surfer. So a little bit of a switcheroo on the roles there. I like that Hulk is involved on both sides of that, so I thought that was kind of cool. I think too, there's a bit of an evolution for the Hulk here to the Professor Hulk. Like, while it's not a direct evolution, the Hulk, the smarter version of Hulk we're seeing here, is just the fact that he's been Hulk for so long. He's sort of adapted to his environment. He's learned how to talk better. He's learned how to act, you know, in I'm not going to call it a more civilized manner, but at least in a more relatable sort of manner. And again, that doesn't translate directly to Professor Hulk, which is a combination of him and Bruce. So that's not what this is, but it does serve, at least for sort of from an audience perspective, to getting to that point. So I thought that was an interesting way to go about it, and I liked how I do appreciate how they've changed Hulk here. I actually think they're going to wind up getting back to a Savage Hulk at some point. I don't think Professor Hulk's going to last forever. I think there's going to be something. I hope maybe this is more of a hope, but I do think they're going to get to some sort of event where the Hulk he's got bottled up just has to get out, and something's going to happen. So I'd like to see that. Really quickly, as they're trying to escape and they bring Loki onto the team, I thought the Loki versus Valkyrie knife fight is a really, really cool action piece where there's something about knives, man. I just like cringe at them. Like, you know, it's just like in a sort of good visceral way. It's like, can you imagine getting in a knife fight? I mean, good grief. Like, but him and Valkyrie have this really awesome knife fight. And I thought that was like a standout scene in the whole movie. And then they're trying to escape, right? They're heading for the wormhole. Great chase sequence, and I got to throw out, it's my birthday. I love that scene, man. That had me cracking up when he hits that button, and that's what played. I thought that was great.
Well, Arch, I gotta tell you, man, knife fights in real life don't look like they looked in Thor Ragnarok.
I'm sure they don't, but yeah, there's something just like, I thought it was an awesome fight sequence. It was just really cool. I'm sure they don't.
No, and I want to connect off that and just say that I think that you're right, Arch. Like, there's so much to say about this movie. The more you think about it and the more you unfold it and unpack it, there really just is so much to say about so many characters and about so many aspects of the movie. As far as the Hulk goes, I think, has everybody heard the rumors that Marvel Studios supposedly maybe is on the verge of signing him to a deal?
To like another movie. Yeah, like I've heard they've had the option to do an actual Hulk movie at this point. I don't know what all the details are on that.
I'm not going down a rabbit hole, Cyber.
Universal actually I think it was 2 years ago now. They finally lost the rights to the Hulk, and Marvel was able to buy it back. So they do have the rights to the Hulk.
They do.
So that the possibility of doing a solo Hulk film is true, and I think if they are going to do one, they're probably going to go full World War Hulk.
See, I did not have a firm factual understanding that Marvel Studios actually had obtained the full film rights for Hulk. I thought there was still some type of impediment.
From my understanding, they have the full rights now.
Well, of course, I think everybody knows that, like, the people in the fandom want to see Wolverine and Hulk in a film. They want to see Wolverine done, his origin done properly, the comic book way, where he fights Hulk, kind of to start things off, you know?
That'd be a badass way to do it. Can't go wrong.
All right. Any other thoughts, Arch, before we let you go?
I don't know. I'm not gonna get all the way to the end of it here, but no, I just thought it was great. I thought the way they wrap up the Surtur arc was good. The way they kind of started off with Valkyrie as a malcontent for valid reasons, and kind of have her re-inspired to join Thor rather. I still find the Hela backstory really interesting. I hope, and Marvel tends to do this, to go back into their history, to bring back characters like we mentioned the Red Skull before, how they did go back and sew up that mystery. So I don't put it past them to go back and find out what actually happened in something like Hela's backstory. But I thought this was a really fun film. I really enjoyed the first two Thor films. I thought this was a good segue into sort of a bit of a different style that they did really well on. It did put Thor on a bit of a different shelf. Highly successful. I really enjoy it.
What if season 2, Arch? We might see Hela in What If season 2.
Might. I hope so. I hope so. Kate Blanchett is really too good to not utilize again. I'm not convinced she's dead. I don't think she is. So I'd like to see what else they can do with that character.
But she's the goddess of death. She can't die.
Right. Exactly. I don't know.
And that's why Loki. And that's why Loki can't die, because Odin made a deal with Hela that if she stayed, no, wait a minute. Loki made a deal with his daughter Hela that she would write his name out of the book of death. So that's why he can't die. He
That's
always,
curious.
even when he dies, he comes back somehow, some way.
That's curious. There's another little brief scene that rarely gets mentioned, but when Hela's first fighting off the Asgardian army and she's being attacked by 100, 200, however many Asgardian soldiers are sitting there, she does get stabbed in the back very noticeably one time, and she just brushes it off like it's nothing. And I did find it interesting that her death scene winds up coming at the hands of a sword strike from Surtur. And I gotta wonder if that original sort of scene is saying that no, she can't die that way, and that's what that is literally telling you. So I don't know. I hope to see her back. I think Kate Blanchett was awesome. I'd like to see more.
They never flushed out her power set at all in
Right.
the film. Really, they didn't really explain or give us any kind of real idea in terms of what she was capable of. Really, if she really wanted to do certain things, or what she couldn't do.
Right.
Yeah, and Arch brings up a good point. They set up with these expository little background information that they give, that sets up that could set up a whole movie. This whole Odin and Hela, relationship. What that was, that's a real good story in and of itself, right there.
Could be.
And there's that human level of Odin in this film where you have a very similar trope of him turning Hela into a bad person, making her like a war machine, a monster, like as a weapon to him, right? Yeah. And then evolving as a man over time and becoming more human, if anything, and then dawning on Thor, right?
And Loki, yeah.
Yes.
Both of them.
Which has the reverse problem. But yeah, it's a really interesting sort of family dynamic. I very relatable in a lot of ways. Like people do that when they're raising kids. I know plenty of people who like are clearly the reflection of how they were raised. I think all of us probably are. I think all of us are definitely to a certain extent, but you can definitely see that in the extreme with the way certain people were raised. So it's kind of curious to think about that from Odin, that he raised Hela as a warlord, and that's how she turned out, and then he doted on Thor, and he's a selfish kind of guy. He has to get over that. So it's sort of interesting dynamic. Loki's exactly that. He was a guy who didn't get enough love, and like that's his character fault.
And then seeing Odin humanized, seeing Thor humanized, like he's been in the Thor films. That's one thing with Loki. Right. Loki never gets humanized as a character. He's always Asgardian, or giant frost giant or whatever and whatnot. Like you never see him really like relate at a human level.
Frost giant, Jeff.
Frost giant. That's right. In the what if episode, he looked like he had like a 4-foot dong.
Oh my god.
All right.
Not too different from Hiddleston.
And on that note, I'm gonna get to bed, guys.
Okay.
All
All right, Arch.
Sweet dreams.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care, guys.
Just be dreaming about that 4-foot dong.
Oh, I gotta get to sleep on that one. All right. Take care, guys. See ya. Good to talk to you.
All right, Arch.
Bye-bye.
All right. So,
hey, I love that guy, Cyber.
I know you do. All right. So, to finish off this amazing review, last portion of the film. So, basically, Thor, Hulk, Valkyrie all get back to Asgard, and that's when a giant battle ensues. Korg's there fighting, Loki's there fighting, Hela's fighting, all her evil henchmen, all the people from Sakaar that got on the boat and left, all get into this giant battle. At one point, Hulk becomes Hulk again. Banner falls down and turns back into Hulk to fight Fenris. Him and Fenris have a gigantic fight, which is really fun, and he defeats the giant wolf. We have a great battle sequence with Hela and Thor. Thor basically ends up losing an eye at one point while fighting her, and basically he goes to Odin in like almost like a state light to talk to him and say, basically Odin tells him, "Are you the god of hammers? No, you're the god of thunder. You must use your thunder." And basically then he realizes that what his lightning was before sparkles, and ends up starting using his awesome new powers and starts beating the hell out of Hela and everyone there. They have this great battle sequence that's just really fun. Scourge is there fighting too as well. He ends up grabbing his guns and ends up fighting and helping against Hela. And basically they end up getting all the Asgardians onto the ship after, and they're fighting Hela, and then Thor realizes what he's got to do in order to stop Hela, and that's when he releases Surtur. And Surtur basically brings about Ragnarok, and that's basically when Asgard is destroyed. Supposedly Hela is destroyed at the same process. They escape on the ship. Basically, that's when Thor ends up becoming king again, and basically that's how the movie ends. So, before we move on to the post-credit scenes. So, that final battle sequence, the Hulk becoming the Hulk again, the battle with Fenris, the battle with Hela, Surtur coming out again. What were your guys' thoughts on that whole battle sequence? Starting with you, Loki's mom.
Yeah, when they return to
Asgard.
They escape Sakaar and return in the funky ship. Party ship, whatever it was.
Orgy ship.
Orgy ship.
Party ship.
Yeah, it's pretty. I loved it. I thought that was the coolest spaceship they've had so far in any of the MCU movies. But anyway, yeah, I mean the whole battle sequence. I mean that this is Ragnarok. This is it. They either get the people off the planet, or everybody's going to be consumed with Hela. And her and whatever, she's going to be let loose, and then Earth will be in peril again. So she has to be stopped there. And of course we this is where Loki finally begins his redemption arc. As far as he could have taken off in the spaceship or whatever, or stayed on Sakaar, and not got involved. But in the end, he came back and saved his people. And so I think that was, a great moment for him. And then of course he actually has to go and take the horns and put them in the eternal flame to resurrect Surtur. And we got a little bit there that if Loki is a magician himself, he has the ability to say the spell to bring him forth. So that's why he goes there. And then, of course, that whole scene where Bruce Banner says, "I got this," and jumps out of the spaceship and plunk. down on the Rainbow Bridge was hilarious. I mean, that was just probably one of the biggest laughs of the whole movie because it was so well timed. And of course, and the whole thing, and of course, all the standard battle scenes and everything. Yeah, I mean, just well done, just great. There again, reprise the immigrant song and everything, and it just piles up and bodies going everywhere. And then Scourge has his redemption moment with his AK-4 with his AR-15s, Dez and Troy, and so yeah, just great finale, great ending, and like I said, I had a lot of bad things to say about Thor. And this is one of the reasons why, because when you compare the when you compare the two movies, you can see how well done, how clever, how smart, action packed. I mean, there wasn't really any scenes where people are standing around trying, you're okay, get to the next scene, get to the next action scene. You're not feeling that way. There was no silly stuff in it. There was no pandering, I didn't think, like you saw in the other movies. So yeah, this Waititi did a really great job, and he knocked it out of the park. I'd say this was probably, at least in my top 5 of the MCU films that came out up until now.
Thank you. Jeff, your thoughts on the final battle sequence, sir?
Bouncing off Renee, the flow of the entire film that Taika set was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The flow of it is great. The energy of it, the flow is excellent. There's not a single off moment. It all comes together. It's not disjointed. Nothing's overdone. Nothing's underdone. Right? Mm-hmm. It's almost perfection in a way. In its own way. I hate this. I never really thought about it, but in its own way, having these opportunities to review and think and talk and discuss these films has enlightened me on the fact that Ragnarok on its own, Taika was, say whatever about Taika. He's obviously very talented as a director, an individual, did a great job, but he certainly did not manage to produce a better film in Thor 4 than he did in Thor 3. I don't think he'll ever touch Ragnarok. There'll never be another Thor Ragnarok. I don't think any of us honestly believe that there would be another Thor film better than Ragnarok after Ragnarok. That's just how it goes, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But overall, I mean, I feel like in general, that type of like perfection with the timing and the story and the flow like that is hard to pull off. And to have that kind of consistency and that evenness, to where there really are no drop-offs in Ragnarok. There are no lulls. There's nothing really at any given point where you're like bored or whatever and whatnot. Any minute that, if anything, you think you have an idea what's going on, then all of a sudden they throw Korg in there with this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Doug's dead. Oh, I forgot Doug's dead. Meek's dead. I stepped on his ass. I feel terrible about it. Oh, Meek, now you're alive? Oh, great. Thor randomly asking Meek where the fuck he was from out of nowhere. Like suddenly talking to Meek. It's like, what? I mean, it was great. And Jesus, Tiffy, are you kidding me, dude? Oh my God. Anyways, but no, I mean, I'm telling you, like, just overall, I think that Cyber, you and I would definitely, and Renee would agree that people forget that this was an evolution, right? This had never been done before in this way, with this type of interconnectivity among all these films, with a game plan set out 4 or 5, 6 years ahead of everything at all times in terms of what direction they wanted to go with the films. All that planning and preparing, and at the same time having to change and bend as they went. And honestly, oh my God, Tiffy. No, I'm telling you, like, honestly, I feel like in its own right, Ragnarok. Can you hear Tiffy, Cyber?
No.
No,
Okay.
we hear her.
Okay. No, I feel like in its own right, Ragnarok, in a way, is similar to like Infinity War and Endgame as far as its impact and how impeccable of a film it is.
Yeah.
It may not have some of the aspects and whatnot that Infinity War had that were strengths for Infinity War. It didn't have like the massive combinations of the different characters, mixing it up and whatnot and everything for the first time and all that, right? It didn't have some of the big massive action scenes. It didn't have the emotional aspect of like Endgame, the finality of it. But it's so, and where it was at in phase 3, it was almost underrated in a way, because nobody expected it to be that great. Nobody knew what to expect, really, at that point. I don't know if Marvel knew what to expect, really, with Thor 3. I think they were kind of like wondering where we're going to go with this. Like how's this going to play out? They lucked out with Taika. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know who the hell it was that made that call. I don't know if it was Feige or Esposito or whatever. Like, I don't know who it was that reached out to him and was like, Taika, you want to come in here and, direct this film? I don't know his background as well as maybe Renee does or you do, Cyber, in terms of where he was at before Ragnarok as a director. If this was a risk for him at all, or like a big break for him, maybe just to be in the MCU, maybe. I'm not sure. But I feel like he stepped up to the plate at like the key moment when realistically, like we already talked about and flushed out, compared to the Captain America films and the Iron Man films, the Thor films just were not as good. They were like the ugly little sister or whatever, and at that point, for him to step in like that and revolutionize the entire Thor series, there never would have been a Thor 4 if not for Ragnarok. That would have been it. It would have been 3 films. So I feel like I don't know what that wolf thing was that Hulk fought in that final scene, but that thing was awesome. I loved it. Great. Way to interject. I don't know, mythical, Asgardian creature or whatever. The thing was awesome. Hulk fighting that thing was great. Hulk jumped. Go ahead.
That's it's called Fenris in the movie.
Yep.
A little bit of mythology lore. Fenris in myth is Loki's son.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Hela is Loki's daughter.
Loki's daughter.
Okay.
Well, he has these 3. Loki had in myth. He had these 3 horrible children. He had the wolf. He had Jormungandr, which is the Midgard snake, the Midgard serpent, which circles the earth, and Hela, which she's her image was that she was, one side of her was a beautiful woman, the other side of her was a skeleton, like wizened, just skeleton skin, because she's the goddess of death. And so when Loki's finally bound in in the myth, the actual myth Ragnarok, he's bound for all of his misdeeds. They kill Fenris and take his guts out, the entrails, and tie Loki up to some rocks, and there where he has to remain there, where a giant serpent drips poison into his eyes all the time, and causes great pain. But because he was in such pain, he would cause Asgard to have a massive earthquake. So they got Sigyn, his wife, to go in and hold a bowl over his face, and would drip the poison, and that would give him relief. But she would have to leave every so often to empty the bowl, and that's when he would be in pain again. So that's sort of behind that whole. In famous stories, those are very popular ancient stories that people have told back and forth about that. And I just think it's very odd how Marvel has taken it and retconned it literally and changed it up for a modern audience to sort of retell the story in some ways. And it's not like the Ragnarok myth is nothing like Ragnarok the movie. It's just not. A lot of the characters are there, but they don't do what they're supposed to do. Anyway.
Well, also, I believe that they also wanted to attach the character of Death from the Infinity Gauntlet series in the comic books that Thanos was obsessed with. That he actually wanted to like wipe out half the universe out, like for her to press her or whatever. What's that?
What was this character Thanos was obsessed with?
Like, was it called Death or Lady Death, Cyber?
What was the question?
Oh,
the entity Death, the actual the female Death character that Thanos is obsessed with in the comics. That actually the real reason why he wanted to like get the Infinity Stones and like wipe out half the population was to press her.
I believe it's Lady Death. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the Hela character drew off that to some extent. I think that was the embodiment for Marvel of that Death character. That was just too big for them to be able to actually do on screen. You know, it was too much to like try to play that out in the MCU. But I guess I'll just wrap things up and just say that Hulk finishing up and like jumping and trying to fight Sitar or whatever was awesome. Perfect like ending to that whole awesome battle scene, like that, throw humor in there like that, you know, and have Thor having to tell Hulk to chill out. And it was great to see Hulk as Hulk for that final time, you know, and really like throwing down, you know what I'm saying, and being like badass, you know, and being Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though, as we talked about, this was a different kind of Hulk than we'd seen before. He talked, you know, he was intelligent to some extent. He was learning, growing. I think that this movie also sort of like was like a vehicle for the Hulk and for Bruce Banner's trajectory as the Hulk. Also, his evolution as a character. And I think that's interesting that they ended up doing that with Ragnarok the way that they did. But overall, them coming together as a team at the end, Loki, Valkyrie, Korg, Thor, you know, and taking on, you know, Hela and her whole army of undead or whatever there. It was great. Great team. You know, what an interesting like mix, a combination of characters, man. And how about Loki actually coming through at the end, like being the stand-up guy and shit, you know, and being down for the cause. It was awesome.
Very true. Very true. All right. So, to close this out, let's talk about the two post-credit scenes. All right. So, the first post-credit scene was a great little post-credit scene of showing Thanos' ship, the prelude to Infinity War. Then, about halfway through the credits, we get one final mid-credit scene, and it actually shows Jeff Goldblum, a.k.a. Grandmaster, after the revolt on Sakaar, basically coming out of his capsule and trying to figure out, how am I going to get away from all these people that want to kill me? Which was a really fun kind of little mid-credit scene, and also to show that Grandmaster was still alive and still around, and, you know, kind of precursor to, we could have seen him later on. So, to sum this up, these two post-credit scenes, did you enjoy them? Did you think they were necessary? And what were your thoughts on them? Starting with you, Jeff.
I mean, they weren't that impactful, I didn't think, compared to other end credit scene we've seen in other films. I felt like they were more almost, I don't want to say trivial. I don't want to put them down like that or whatever. I don't want to say it like that. But there really wasn't anything flushed out with them that was intensely impactful besides the Thanos ship, right? The premonition of that was big. It was. And that is why, of course, Ragnarok does tie into Infinity War. It does directly. Without question.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, the other end credit scene, it doesn't really, you know, flush anything into interesting out really. In terms of anything that connects to, like, you know, any new characters or anything all that impactful. I mean, that last end credit scene is with the Grandmaster, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and what is he basically talking about in that? Like, is he talking about the podcast of champions, not the podcast of champions, but the tournament of champions, everything and whatnot? And
no, he just comes out of the capsule and hit all the people that are still on Sakaar trying to kill him.
Oh, okay, I got it. Because of the revolution. Yep. What? I get confused.
I just explained it, Jeff.
I know. I'm sorry, man. You have to understand. You can't hear Tiffy in the background. It's killing me.
No, we can't.
She's getting me. She's very
You'll have to put the mic on her one night.
No.
Then maybe you should put the dog outside of your bedroom then at some point.
I will. She doesn't always snore like this. But no. Honestly, I would have loved it if they would have actually maybe like just done something where they brought the collector in real quick and actually showed they were brothers, you know, and like actually maybe just had them talk a little bit about the fact that they have been alive at that point for like thousands of years. They are like, they're not celestials, but they're, I don't know, they're almost sort of like they're near gods. They're similar to Thor and Loki and Odin in a way. You know, they're forefathers of like the
elders of the universe.
Yeah, so the elders of the universe. They're just they just weren't like big, you know, they're not celestials, they're not eternity or the Watcher. But I think it's interesting that they're brothers. They're so different, you know, and they're so weird and unique. And all I can honestly say is just that bouncing off of that end credits, Jeff Goldblum killed it in this movie. He killed it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, the Grandmaster scenes, the Sakaar scenes, and his like assistant or whatever, that chick that he's always going back and forth with, she's funny as shit too. Like, you know, bouncing off back and forth and whatnot. Him with that the zap stick, like smoking the guy, killing the guy and shit and whatnot. And the Thor was hilarious. And his humor and his timing comedically is just outstanding.
Yes, Jeff Goldblum is fantastic. He is the best. He is the bomb.
Another great get for Marvel and Sarah Finn.
Very true. All right, Loki's mom. Your thoughts on those final two post-credit scenes?
Yeah, I thought the first one, the one where it's just he and Loki are standing there. Well, what are you going to do? What are they going to do with me? Well, this one. And then all of a sudden they just they go agog, and then there's this giant, humongous spaceship. But it didn't really give us anything else. We just they, you know, what's going on here. I mean, I guess we should know that it's Thanos, but I don't know anything that would have indicated that anything through the movie that he was going to show up at the very end. So yeah, it kind of left you wondering what's happening with it. But then when you get to the second one, now I thought the one with Jeff Goldblum was hilarious because it was, here he is again. He's going to make everything. He's going to make lemonade out of lemons. He's that optimistic. And Jeff Goldblum and our Jeff right here, our Jeff Goldblum here, rightly points out that he steals every scene in this movie. He just has that ability, and his demeanor and he brings his own humor, his own personality to the character. And he's so ebullient, you know, as he is. I guess you'd say maybe he's evil. I don't know. He enslaves people and makes them fight to the death. That's a pretty nasty guy when you stop and think about it. But he's just so nice and pleasant to be around, you know, and funny, and you like him and everything. And you bring out that he and the collector, played by Del Toro, and oh golly, well, he was in, I guess, one of the end credits. He was actually the end credit of Dark World, where they take the ether to him for him to protect it, you know, put it for safekeeping. So he makes a little cameo there at the end of that movie. So yeah, it'd be nice to see them play off and get together, maybe in another movie somehow, some way. But who knows? Maybe not. I do hope we get to see more of Jeff Goldblum. down the road. I hate that they had to cut him out of the Thor 4 movie, but anyway, yeah, he was just fantastic and just an all around great person, great human being. I think everybody just loves Jeff Goldblum. And
Yes, they do.
He was the Fly.
Yep, they do. Awesome, thank you. All right, that is the end of this review, guys. We want to thank everyone for watching. You guys are awesome. You guys are great. We want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to us gab all night long. To send us off, we're just going to go around the panel. If anybody has anything they like to say, just basically tell us a little bit about where you're from and to check you out. So starting with you, Loki's mom, talk about the Podcast of Champions, please.
Yeah, we're going to start. I guess She-Hulk will be available in the next few hours over on Disney Plus. So we're going to start She-Hulk review, and that will be on our Saturday afternoon Podcast of Champions, which is 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, we're over talking about topics. If you want to come over and talk spoilers or not, it's over at Sarkar, talking about the planet Sarkar at freeforums.net.
Thank you. And of course, if you enjoy me on here, definitely check out my solo content under Cyberneticshark on YouTube, Twitter, Rizzle, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you can find you. I'm also putting up some great stuff. Also started a new series of music video reviews, retro. So definitely check that out too as well. And like I always say, check us out. We're always fun. And please, anything left to say, Mr. Jeff? Oh, you're muted, I think, sir.
I said, I want to send Tiffy to Sakar at this point. I'm telling you right now. Tiffy needs to go to fucking Sakar. All right? Like, I'm serious. Like, I don't even, leaving the room is not enough. You know what I'm saying? This shit is haunting. But anyways, I'm a very tolerant guy, man. But no, honestly, Cyber, I was just going to say that, shoot, what the hell was I going to say? Oh man, I can't even talk. She's just overpowering me right now. It's like dominating me. You know, I feel like I'm being dominated by Tiffy.
Everyone out there, just to let you know, Tiffy is a dog.
Yes.
What type of dog is Tiffy?
She's a Shih Tzu, and she's kind of heavy, and she has some kind of nasal passage bullshit, where when she snores, it's like hardcore. Like all out.
She has sleep apnea.
Yes, it's intense.
You need to get her a little doggy CPAP.
Yes. And with me having a TBI, I'm very sensitive to audible issues. You know what I'm saying? So like it really bothers me. You know?
Yeah.
So I can handle Dodge barking and
I
shit.
actually can hear it now.
Oh, it's loud. Yeah, it's loud. I mean it's rough.
Yeah, so everybody be quiet for just a sec.
I mean, I wouldn't even be able to have sex during it. You know?
Ooh, Tippy, stay in the room. Tippy, stay in the room.
Yeah, like for real.
She'd sleep right through it.
Oh no! I mean that would also maybe give me erectile dysfunction, just like Liz with the freaking Sigourney Weaver picture the other night. Thanks again, Liz.
Anything else, Sir Jeff, besides the dog?
Yeah, just that basically I just want to put it out there that Cyber and I were talking to her today, and I didn't even realize how long we've been doing this, but I think we're basically almost at our 1.5 year mark here pretty soon. We're getting there. We're close to it, I think. If not there, I'm not really 100% sure. I probably should write it down.
Next month.
Yep. And that's wonderful. It really is. It's wonderful. Cyber and I have been co-hosting the show for over a year together, and it's flown by. And we have gotten to the point where, hey, man, we kill it at doing Disney Plus reviews. I don't care. And I'm telling you right now, Cyber is guesting away these days. Now that he's freed up and he's free like a bird, he's out there killing it as a guest on the shows these days. And we're having a blast over on JRent 2000's, a podcast Odyssey show, his Facebook Live show, doing classic 70s, 80s, 90s movie reviews together. And Renee's going to join us. next Monday. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. We're having a blast. Me and Cyber are guesting together for once in our entire friendship, having a blast with it. You know, it's been fun. And, hey, J-Rent's a good host, too. We have a good time over there. And, you know, we don't know what we're going to cover on Monday yet. But we did Mad Max last one. We did Alien before that. We did Total Recall. I mean, we're doing the best of the best here. So, you know, I mean, hey, yeah, we're having a good time. And you may see me and Cyber on Gerald's A Pop Culture Cosmos podcast, I believe, on Thursday, if Cyber can make it, at 7 p.m. Eastern. He wants us to come on and do a segment and talk about the She-Hulk episode on his pop. We'll see if we can make that happen. But I just want to thank Cyber. I want to thank Renee. I want to thank Arch. I want to thank everybody from the Podcast of Champions and Scar.freeforums.net for sticking with us throughout this entire Connected series and doing these reviews with us and whatnot and everything. It's always been important to me. It matters to me. It does. And, hey, you know what? Shout out to the fandom. And thank you, everybody, for helping us get over 2,000 subs. You know what? I guess when they say that the first 1,000 is the hardest and then it gets easier, they weren't lying. You know, but we appreciate and we're humbled by all the success that we get. Thank you very much, everybody. And please, 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 if you enjoyed the MCU's Bleeding Edge, if you like any of my reaction videos, subscribe, please. We're dying, like, with people not subbing and, like, watching our shit. So hit that sub button, baby. Let's go. Keep it real now.
Oh, yeah. All right, folks, that is it. We will catch you next time. Like I said before, on Friday evening, we will be doing our She-Hulk Episode 1 review. So come on by. And until then, catch you next one.
Hey. I said, excuse me, you don't understand where I'm at. I was all around the world, on span, across the map. I've been laying low and now it's time to pop up, bitch, I'm back. Now I'ma run it up. Snooze on the kid that you done with what? You better go get your